to welcome Yisreal Pinson to the floor. Excuse me, Rabbi Yisreal Pinson, who is doing something very leadership-like in his community in terms of bringing it down to the city. Yisreal, if you will come join me, please, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yisreal Pinson. I'm a rabbi, that's correct. And it sounded like a meeting before when everyone was given the dates when they became entrepreneurs. I quit my job, my last paying job on April 15, 2013, and decided to come here to the city. Actually, it started many years earlier as my role with an organization called Friendship Circle in West Bloomfield. We help children with special needs. And one of my roles there was to kind of get them on board with social media, Facebook back in the days. And we did some very, very successful campaigns over the years. And through the social media, I got in touch with other people in the city who shared their stories about how they were doing things and how they were getting involved, and a lot of it had to do with the city of Detroit. There was many conferences, social media days, 140 Conf, TEDx, and all these things that I got involved with. So one of the changes in my life, I ran this place for recovering alcoholics and addicts for 9 years, and in 2011, I left that job, and I decided that it would be smart for me to also change my phone number, because there was 500 recovering addicts and sometimes using addicts in town who had that cell phone number. And I didn't want to get those calls anymore. So I figured I need to change my number, but being that I did not know what I was going to do next, I wanted something that was flexible, so I got myself a Google number, and I was looking for the right phone number, and I made a conscious decision to look for a number with the area code 313. That was the beginning for me. I went from 248 to 313 in April 2011, and I didn't have no clue that I was going to end up here one day in the city actually, but I wanted my heart and my story to include this area code. So I'm glad to be here on 313. 313 years ago, a Frenchman, Antoine Lomé de la Motte, came and founded Fort Pontchartrain de Detroit, and the French people ruled the city for almost 60 years. Being myself from France, I think that it was kind of in the stars for me to end up back here in Detroit. And the way that it happened is really by mistake. I belong to an international organization affiliation called Chabad Lubavitch, and we do outreach centers around the world. My grandparents opened a school in North Africa in 1952. My parents opened a school in Nice, France in 1976. And I was looking for a candidate to come and move to the city of Detroit. And I interviewed many candidates, and I showed them around, and I drove them around. And I told them about what's going on. This city is coming back. They said, well, you don't know, you're from France. We've been around Michigan for so many years, and we heard that story so many times. You don't know what you're talking about. So I couldn't find anyone to do this, but they kept on asking me a question. It says, you're trying to convince me to come down. What about you? Would you agree to move to the city of Detroit? And I'm a recruiter for that role, and I said, absolutely. If it came down to, would I come down to the city to open this organization because no one else will do it, I will do it. The only problem is I didn't check with my wife. Tiny, slight, little problem. Well, and by the way, this became the question. I cannot tell you how many times I hear this question every day when I tell people, I'm opening an organization in Detroit, we opened an organization in Detroit, we're buying a property in Detroit, we're moving my family to Detroit. And they say, what does your wife say about it? Like, why is that the first question? Why is everyone assuming that my wife is not on board? Well, she wasn't. Not right away. But people picked up on that. So in April last year, I quit my paying job and I said, I'm going to do this. And I start walking around the city with a new set of eyes, which is, where am I going to settle? Am I going to go to downtown? I'm going to go to midtown. I'm going to go to a residential area. Where are we going to go? And we met with, I had many, there's some sound going on or something. Many relationships in the city. And one of my good buddies, he's a commercial real estate broker. His name is Ben Rosenzweig, which is how I met Terry for the first time around. And he's been involved with an event we were doing for a few years called Menorah and the D. Anyone heard about Menorah and the D? All right, cool. So we put up, the first year we put up a 6-foot ice sculpture in the shape of a Jewish menorah during the holiday of Hanukkah. And we had it on Cadillac Square. And we thought, hey, we're going to do a little thing and hopefully a few people will show up. 500 people showed up from the suburbs, from the city, from the businesses around. So Ben said, next year we've got to do it bigger. He commissioned the Nordine brothers from the Detroit Design Center. They built a 24-foot steel and glass menorah that went into Cadillac Square. 1,500 people showed up. This December, we decided we have to up the game, but there was nowhere to go. But the Nordine brothers said, you know, we want to switch the design a little bit. We got to add another inch, another foot to this menorah. So now it's a 25-foot menorah. We added a concert. And in a mild, cold night in Detroit, 2,500 people showed up to celebrate, again, from the suburb. And people ask me all the time, so what do you do all day? And I say, my favorite thing to do in Detroit is to bring down people with FOD. FOD? Fear of Detroit. And I give them the tour. Now the first thing is I take them into this property that we did buy at the end in Midtown through my relationship with Ben, and he introduced me to Sue Mosey. She showed us Mack Avenue. She says, this is where you want to be. Brush Park. So I say, hey, why don't you come down? I want to show you my new place. The funny thing is, I once bought someone to come down. They said, well, I was going to come, but we're really hungry, so we're going to stop up for lunch, and then we're going to come over. I said, let me understand something. You're coming from the suburbs to visit somebody in the city, and you want to stop off in the suburbs to have a lunch before you come down to Detroit. What's wrong with having lunch in Detroit? There's places to have lunch in Detroit? Are you kidding me? So we took them to D-Hive and we showed them the map and the list and the list and the list. They ended up going to Honest John's. Who likes Honest John's? Awesome, sell them in a second, there you go. And they had a great time. I'm like, thank you so much for giving us this awesome idea of having lunch in Detroit on our way to Detroit. It's like, but you know, I show them around the property that we have, which is nice, but then we go and do the tour. I show them Midtown. We go to Shinola, we go to downtown, we go, you know, and people are like, wow, wow. So you're not scared? No. So, did you have a private security? No. Do you lock the doors every time you go into the house? No. Aren't you scared? No. Why would I be scared? And I see it as part of my mission. Twofold. The first one is FOD, people from the suburbs. They know me. They know that I'm not going to do something that's irrational, so they listen to me when I say come down and look at it. That's number one. The other thing with my community, especially the Jewish community, what we have found is that when people say, are there Jewish people in Detroit? Their first answer is probably not. But even when they're convinced that there is, they're thinking transients. Young people who are going to move in for a month, a year, move out. But there's no permanent families that actually bought houses and are living in the city. And I'm not the first one as a Jewish family to live in the city. Recent years coming back, obviously, in this neighborhood, there's many neighborhoods where Jewish people were before. But I'm trying to use the fact that I'm getting some attention, media attention, etc., to bring this point, which is Detroit is a place where a family with young children, I have 5 kids. My oldest kid is 13, my youngest is 10 months old. Last Friday night, we had our first sleepover in our future home. We brought in another family of us that lives in Huntington Woods to come spend the Shabbat with us. And then we invited a couple of friends that we had. And we had our Friday night dinner we do every week. It starts at 6 p.m. At around midnight, I told my wife, I think we should start wrapping up over here. The last person left at 1:30 in the morning. And they walked 1.5 miles to downtown Detroit to the Book Cadillac where they were staying. With no fear at all. Walking down Woodward Avenue in that area where there was or there wasn't going to be a new stadium, or there is or there isn't light. Fear is really an attitude. And my mission with my moving with my family, opening this nonprofit organization that's a Jewish organization but open to everybody, is to make sure that I do my part in showing how there's no need to be scared. And the last thing that I want to tell you all, before the last thing, is that just last week we applied with Grow Detroit for a new community garden in our backyard. We're calling it the Chabad Community Garden of Brush Park. And really, there's not many gardens in the downtown areas, community gardens. We're going to plant all the good things, and we invite everybody who wants to come and participate. If you like planting and you like doing something in the city, greening of Detroit, come and do it. Now is the last thing I want to tell you. So there's a Jewish holiday this Sunday. I've been walking around downtown this morning in different offices to bring gifts of food that we do in honor of the holiday. As you can see, my shoes full of snow and salt. And the other thing that we do is we get dressed up. Our kids get dressed up. I get dressed up every year. And I asked my kid, what does he want to dress up like this year? And we ran through some ideas, and none of them were, caught up. So now, last night, I was working with construction papers, building towers, because my son is getting dressed up as the Renaissance Center. And I am getting dressed up as Kid Rock, naturally.